So, Steve, welcome to episode 5 of the Cornermen podcast.
Yes, thank you.
Now, you broke the sofas.
Yeah, Marky's not trusted us with sofas. Health and safety. He's looking after me. He reassures me.
So he's swung past the primary school and he's nicked a couple of chairs.
Yes, they're really comfy. Thanks, Marky. But it's actually, if this breaks, it's even more dangerous. We've got further to fall and it's not cushioned.
Yeah. I'm sure Marky's done a risk assessment, especially given last time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we were going to continue our discussions on things that kind of help us out in the world, and things that enable us to be more resilient, and things that enable us to really cope with the storms of life. And we've gone through quite a few of those things. And today we were going to look at exercise, and we were also going to look at consistency after that.
The boring stuff, as I call it.
Exactly, the boring stuff. So exercise and the boring stuff. Now those two are linked. Yeah. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about exercise today is I went to an event on Wednesday, as you know, and it was called Men Speak Up, Men's Journeys in Mental Health. Yeah. And it was very interesting speakers, and it was the first guy who spoke very eloquently, had a history of bullying. He'd been bullied very badly at boarding school. He'd made a number of suicide attempts. He actually became quite successful in his career and was earning quite a lot of money as a banking analyst. But he was, he was smoking 40 fags a day. He was drinking himself under the table every night. And living a very unhealthy lifestyle, was weighing about 20 stone. At 29, and he was married, at 29 he had a stroke, and this was a kind of wake-up call for him. And he went on to, and he was also struggling because he was gay, and so he wanted to change his life. And one of the things he did, he went to a running club, and he did the Couch to 5K. He said how painful it was for him, and then he did a half marathon, and then he did a full marathon. And he said the moment he did the full marathon, he was hooked. When they put that medal around his neck, he was like, "This is it." He went on to do 14 marathons in the next year, and he went on in that vein, and he ended up devising this challenge for himself to do 401 marathons in 401 days.
Wow.
Yeah, which he completed.
Yeah.
So that was.
I'd rather have a 401 Snickers.
Yeah. So this was kind of his journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd never recognised that, did you? The Guinness Book of Records for that?
No.
No. That was. Yeah, I thought you should have written to him before.
Yes.
That was the problem.
It was just for fun, John. Not everything has to be recognised.
No, exactly. So it's your own internal validation, Steve. You've still got the rappers pinned on the wall.
I'm only competing against me.
Yes. So he did that, and it was a very interesting talk. There was another guy who talked about his kind of lifelong battle with depression. He was very good, and he talked about his big, hairy, audacious goals. He sets himself these goals to achieve, and how he manages, his bipolar. It was very interesting. But one of the underlying things on that was his cycling. So obsessed with cycling. Cycles all over the place, does these huge cycles, et cetera, et cetera. There was one other guy who was very interesting, who was a survivor of a relative who died by suicide, his father. And he was talking about how he dealt with that, the ramifications of that, which was a very interesting thing. Now, and I spoke about the Cornermen and how we started the Cornermen, why we started the Cornermen, where we've come from, where we are, where we're going. And then, of course, I got the band out, and the band played a few tunes.
Yeah, of course.
That was. Are
you in a band, John?
That was the evening.
I don't think you've ever mentioned that.
I think we need to do a separate podcast. So that was the evening. But one of the things that did strike me about that was there were 4 speakers. We're all talking about, dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression, dealing with mental health and all that sort of thing. 3 of the speakers were talking about exercise. It was a massive part of how they dealt with the issues. I mean, I was talking about how in the Cornermen we use boxing and boxing training, and obviously that's the origins of the Cornermen, when people were coming to me and saying, this is really helping me. The guy who did the marathons turned his life around. The guy who did the cycling to kind of manage his bipolar and his depressive episodes. So I thought we would talk about exercise today, because it's a kind of underlying.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be keen to exercise as part of what helps us.
Absolutely.
Not the golden bullet.
No, it's not the golden bullet, but I do think it's important.
A massive part. Well, yeah. We talk about the Cornermen, even myself, and there's lots of, I think, as we were talking before the podcast, analogies of how, exercise and how you exercise, it plays in part with our mental health, and with the kind of consistency that you need to get results in exercise, and the consistency we need when we're doing things that work for us to keep on doing them. Yeah. So, I think, exercise is a massive part, and it has been for me. This will come as a surprise to you, John. I'm not a natural athlete.
Right. Who told you that?
Well, you call me Andy Ruiz the other week. So.
Andy Ruiz was heavyweight champion of the world. He beat Anthony Joshua.
Right,
oh God!
You know, I knew what you meant, John.
You do search for compliments, don't you?
So and so I can talk about it from my perspective as well, because what exercise got for me, and it's so annoying because those people who said it's good to exercise were right.
Yes. And not eat those Snickers.
Yeah, or stop.
If only it was the other way around.
Yeah, is it? Well, I was, I was a smoker from sort of 16 to into the late 20s, so I didn't actually start exercising myself. I think probably late 20s, early 30s. So whereas I think you've always enjoyed exercise, have you not?
Yes, I have. I mean, I formally started exercising, if you like that phrase. I mean, at 14. So at 14, I went to a boxing gym, and then it was like, right, what do I need to do? So I converted my parents' garage into a gym, hung the bag up. I had pictures of Bruce Lee and Arnold Schwarzenegger and all that on the wall. Yeah. And so that was where it started for me. And since then, it's been a consistent part of my life.
Okay, so where I was like smoking Embassy No. 1s and getting older kids to buy cider from us from the shop, you were doing it the sensible way. Yeah,
I was getting the train up to the Lonsdale shop in Beak Street in Soho and buying me boxing boots and all that, so skipping ropes.
Yeah, right.
And
sounds better.
So it's been a consistent part of my life, and I think in a way that's maybe led to a bit of a blind spot with me, in the sense that because I've always exercised, I've never had that experience of like, why don't you exercise if you're feeling down?
Yeah, okay.
The only thing I do notice is if I don't train for a certain amount of time, or if I don't try, I try and train still. I'm 54 now, but I still try and train 6 days a week. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 5, but that's my aim, is generally for 6. And I feel really good on that. And if I don't do that, I mean, for example, as you know, I just got back from my Easter break in Ireland, and I often train over there, but I take the training down a bit. And this time I thought, you know what, I'm going to have a total break. I'm going to train really hard up to the holiday. Then when the holiday comes, I'm not going to go to the gym. So, and I didn't go to the gym for 11 days, and that was too much for me, to be honest. A week, great idea.
I've started to notice it. I've been coming here for 10 years now, and so if I don't do it, I can sense I need to go and just get that release.
Yeah. And I don't think it's obviously physical, but the thing is that you stop exercising, if you're exercising a lot for a few days, you feel really good, because that's like, you're kind of your body's replenishing itself, you feel really good, and then it starts to go down a little bit. But there's also a psychosomatic thing, you get this bit of guilt, you think of it, and you want the endorphin rush from the exercise. But aside from talking about our experiences, what do you see with people that come into the Cornermen? Do you think they are ready? Are some of them ready to train straight away? And how do you? We've said before that we use the training as a kind of tool to break down barriers, to talk to people.
I think there's a really depends on the person. So we have people that have already maybe had a boxing history, and that's what's attracted them to the Cornermen. So in many ways, they know what they get from the training. So and that's where I'll hear a lot of boxers saying, "I want to get in camp because my lifestyle's getting a bit out of control," and setting themselves a target and having a routine is something that keeps them kind of safe. And we get people who have not had an exercise or don't exercise, and they can be they're very nervous. And how's it going to be? And that's where we adapt. We make it clear we're not here for to beast you. It's not PE. It's I think it's got to be fun. Ultimately, you've got to enjoy. You got to enjoy, and I think that's and that's where we get someone into the Cornermen. It's trying at first as a kind of seeing what they enjoy. So some people really love coming and doing pads. When people do pads, you can see them really enjoying it.
Yeah.
People who I've never punched or it, and then you can see a kind of, that is so, I really like that. And so that's the most common. You start, and people have suddenly enjoyed that there's a really quite enjoyment in punching something, especially if they're frustrated. It's a kind of great environment to just unleash all that pent up aggression. And I think I've mentioned before to people, one guy I can think up, his friend brought him here and just literally threw him out the car. He was so angry. He was like the Tasmanian devil, he was just, rah! And so just like, come in here, put the gloves on and just hammer away just hit the bag. And you realise, especially if you're not really fit, you can't hammer the bag for very long before you're absolutely knackered. And so then that energy's thing, and we can talk. But some people like to, do the weights, do a little circuit in the weights. Some like to just talk while they're on the, what's that thing called?
Cross trainer.
Cross trainer. And some people like to go for a walk. So I always do the circuit that I'm used to, which is the Tuesday morning circuit at South Morton Blocks, which probably without that circuit, the Cornermen wouldn't have happened. And we do that, and that's where we talk. So, but it's interesting for me personally. So, when people are I think the switch comes on when people are finding something hard, and they do it.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. And there's a kind of, I have this myself because, like I say, I'm not natural athletic, and so I hate every moment pretty much of the exercise I'm doing. If you ask the trainers here, I moan all the way through it. But there's a kind of thing that, this is really hard. I'm not liking this. I'm not liking doing this exercise. But if you manage to do that, there's a kind of switch that comes on that tells you, I can do things I don't like doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can suffer for an end result.
Yeah.
And I can cope with discomfort. And then, you see people come along and they do start to change. Their body starts to change shape. They start to get that kind of, do you know what? I feel good after I've done this. So I know. So and I think that can then be applied in other areas.
I think, I think as well. It's a bit of control. A lot of the people that come here, and I'm talking about the Cornermen, the problem is the life can be a bit chaotic, but life kind of spins out of control. When you get these things that come at you from sideways,
points, it's going to spin out of control.
And often your life is a little bit out of control. The great thing about having a workout is you plan it, you execute it, you complete it. Like you said, there's trials, there's challenges that you manage and you overcome.
Yeah.
And you kind of, that feeling at the end of like, well, I've done that. I've almost, I've completed that as a task that was there to do. And another thing I think you say about, not being a little bit worried about the exercise. I mean, I always personally think you should almost be a little bit scared of your workout. Think, and so your brain automatically gives it, how can I prevaricate? Mine does anyway. How can I prevaricate and put this off? Should I do something else?
Yeah. No,
should I just do this for a bit? Should I just do that for a bit? And you think, no, you should take control of that. And you say to your brain, say your mind, no, we're doing this and we're doing it now.
Well, that's where you're
then when you get in, you focus and then you overcome.
Yeah.
So,
but that's where kind of different personalities as well. You seem to be able to do that on your own.
Yeah.
You can do that. I need to have someone like a Stano.
Yeah.
Or a Terry or someone I need to shouting at me.
Yeah.
To get it done. That encouragement. I think that is a kind of good analogy for the Cornermen as well. You need people to say, come on, you can do it.
Yeah.
But but I can see you when you come, you're quite good at pushing yourself. Whereas I think, I'm the type of, it's about knowing your own personality, and so knowing your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah.
So I need to go to a class. So my routine is to say, right, I need to go and be with others because that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
So you don't normally see me doing anything on my own.
No.
Because I'll sit down with my phone, start.
But that's it. I mean, but I think if you like to say if you're disciplined in the exercise, or if somebody's telling you what to do as a discipline, it's a form of meditation.
Yes.
Because meditation, the idea of meditation successfully is to clear the mind.
Yeah.
And you really clear the mind and focus. And I always found this with boxing. When I've been in situations where you're quite agitated about something, whether it's, it's one of those things you just can't get off your mind. It's a big sort of life decision, whether it's a relationship, whether it's financial, whether it's whatever it is. And, you're kind of thinking about it all the time. And then when you come down and train, a lot of that is alleviated because you're focusing on the task at hand. But I've found, and this is just, from my personal experience, particularly with boxing, and one of the greatest things for me is sparring, because what you are programmed, to constantly think about these things. And then when someone's standing in front of you trying to hit you, your brain totally focuses in the moment now. Everything becomes, you don't have to think about that because you need to think about that thing in front of you that is an immediate threat. So think about that now and everything else disappears. And then for a while afterwards, it's disappeared. And that's the relief. And then you can focus, when you refocus on it, sometimes it's not such a big threat again.
But what you're explaining there is some of the explanation I hear from people who take substances. I need to switch my, especially if someone's saying they've got ADHD, and many times if I'm talking to someone with ADHD, the substance they most choose is ketamine because it takes them, but it's to switch their brain off.
Yes.
And the analogy is, it's just interesting hearing that analogy that for that moment you're not thinking about anything else. And if you've got massive problems, and it's temptation to switch your brain off for a bit.
Yeah, totally.
And I think, I think I got it from boxing, although I don't spar or fight, but I love boxing exercises seems to suit my personality. And, you know, when I first came, it was, you know, I've always had good, you know, jobs I've enjoyed, but they're stressful, you know, dealing with people is very, you know, and so be able to just concentrate and not think about anything else apart from hitting, you know, when I'm with you and you're holding the pads, I'm just trying to listen out for the numbers, hit the pads.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's that intensity in that exercise, which almost banishes everything else. Because like I say, when I'm shouting those numbers at you and calling you to instantly respond, so there's not a lot of room for other thought.
It's a very healthy way of switching your brain off for a bit and shutting out thoughts.
I mean,
because I'm not sure about getting punched on the nose, but that's kind of switching your brain off, and you're doing good stuff for your body as well.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to switch your brain off with something that's going to poison your body.
Well, I mean, I think the kind of obvious thing to say.
Yeah.
Having also done the switch the brain off thing.
Yes.
You know, I'm thinking, right, I'm not going to think of it now. I'm going to drink. I'm going to have a drink because that would be my poison of choice. And I find that it will work temporarily.
Yeah.
And then the problem is magnified.
Yes, exactly.
When it comes back. Yeah. Whereas when you do it with maybe with the meditation, but with the sport and with the exercise, and for me with the boxing, the problem is still there, but it's much more. You're much more able to cope with it. Yeah. You know, it's much more in perspective.
And I think it's about finding what works for you. Like I said, I tried running. I hate.
Yeah.
Just get bored. But people love running. I'm not, when I'm saying this, I'm not denigrating anyone's sport. I'm just saying what works for my own personal. You know, running. I tried taekwondo. My legs are far too short for that. You've got to be able to kick people in the head in taekwondo.
Yeah.
You know.
Stick to short people. You know.
That's right. Yeah. Kids sticking to kids. And then when I came here, you know, and tried out I think it was the Tuesday session, which is we do of a morning, and we do a circuit in here. You know, loved the feel of the boxing, and you can see that even here at the boxing club, you know, you got the guys who love the BJJ, the boxing, the kickboxing. It's what suits someone's personality.
Yeah,
I think, you know, and so I think it took me a little while. You know, I tried football. I wasn't very good at it. So you have to. So you know, boxing for me was kind of suited my personality.
Yeah,
yeah. So I think it's about finding something, and that's trial and error. Something.
And I think it's very interested in here as well. You mentioned about the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and also the boxing and the K1, the kickboxing, and the other classes as well. They all build little micro communities around them. Well, and I know that there's a subculture that's very strong in the BJJ.
Yes,
and in the boxing. We were out on Wednesday night with a lot of girls from that I call them the 7 a.m. lot. Yeah. You know, that do the 7 a.m. class with me, like you say, on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and we all went out, and so there's a social scene around that.
And then there is, I don't know, I mean, I don't, because they could all kick my head in, so I'll be careful about what I say, but because I'm here all the time, you can kind of see the difference. So I always
different tribes come and go,
and so you know the BJJ's guys go in there, you know, in their pajamas, very shoes off, they've kind of seem very kind of, you know, neat and tidy, and they go in there and secretly plot how they can silently strangle you. If you go over to, you know, one of the sessions, the boxing sessions, it's kind of a bit, and you know, and then so you can see that there's different areas, and then the weightlifting guys. You know, so you can see there's all this. You can see the different personalities it suits, and I think if anyone's like not really an exercise, just try different things that suit your personality.
Yeah.
That's what worked for me anyway, and you know, I think although the kind of coming along and doing the hard and waking up. I'm not a great fan of waking up early, but you know, that 7 o'clock start. I know I've got to set my alarm for 6 o'clock. Have to get out of bed. And I have to go and do something I don't particularly, you know, I love the social side, but so that's all good kind of, I find it quite good mental training to say, get up and do something you don't want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know?
It's cold, especially when it's cold. It's cold. And there's a moment you have to kind of argue, because I'm always telling people you've got to argue a bit with yourself.
Yes.
Because your head will kick you, you know, in your head, it will kick the shit out of you. Because your head, people are in bad relationships with their own voices and, you know, telling them that they're useless or whatever. You kind of got to have an argument with yourself. And so when the alarm goes off, I'm like, let's go and stay in bed.
Yeah.
You have to go, no, fuck it, come on, let's get out of bed. No, swing that leg. You don't really want, you have to like force your fight against, swing that leg round and it's cold, and then get out and walk down and come out here with it, scrape the car and the ice.
Yeah.
And I kind of think, it's good for you.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
But it's
not horrible when you've done it.
Yeah.
The sense of, okay, yeah.
You have to have that discipline. And you always get those rituals. I've got that ritual, my alarm goes off.
Yeah.
Whatever time my alarm goes off. And I normally get up early, it's
Yeah.
normally 5:30 or 6.
Yeah.
And then I will because I have to grab my phone and turn the alarm off.
Yeah.
Probably not a great thing, but then I've got my phone.
Yeah.
And then I will allow myself to check some things. So I might check my bank account. I might see what's gone through.
Yeah.
That morning, I might check the headlines. I might
Come on,
check.
John, to be honest, you might check. Your first thing you're checking is streams of who's been listening to the Cornermen.
It never occurred to me.
There we are.
Okay. But see, I know what I'm doing. I'm justifying staying in bed by saying, listen, I'm doing something. This needs to be attended to. I might look at my emails, you know what I mean? But it's 5 minutes, no more than 5 minutes. Then I'm like, right, no. You put that, get out of bed.
You've got to get out of bed.
Yeah. So that's, and like I say, I justify that lie in there by,
that's what
doing,
nicely, brings in, it's the boring stuff. It's the hard, boring stuff that really is essential.
Do you know what? There's a great quote by Mike Tyson that springs to mind now, is that, they said, what is discipline? Well, discipline is doing something that you hate, but doing it like you love it.
Yeah.
And that can be applied to training, and camp and all that sort of thing.
But it's, I see, the example of many people, especially if they're, I've decided to change my life. I've turned a new leaf. I'm exercising regularly. I'm going to eat well. I'm going to do all this. And it's okay for the first 3 weeks because you're kind of excited about it. But if you don't get a boring routine, like you're talking about, all right, I'm going to go Tuesday morning. We're going to do that. And it's just, you start planning about planning your week, really.
Yeah.
You're thinking ahead. You're saying, right, well, that slot's going to be there and that's going to be there. And then doing those things repetitively.
Yeah.
And it's okay when you're feeling great. That's when it's easy. It's when I don't actually feel like it today. I mean, that's where the kind of repetitiveness helps. Like you're saying, you get into routine, you just do it.
Yeah. And consistency is that key.
Yeah.
Consistency is the key to achieving any results. And it's another, I'm not going to start just chucking out random quotes, but I always love that quote, and I always use that if we go and talk at schools, that 90% of success is just showing up. If you just show up, things will happen. And if you keep showing up, things will happen. And this is the thing about, like you say, people come in and they have a big burst of activity. I mean, the stereotype with exercise is the January gym joiners.
Yes.
And we get it a little bit here, but not so much because it's more specialist.
Yeah.
People who are just jumping off the couch and saying, I've eaten too much chocolate, I need to go to the gym, generally don't come here.
Yeah.
They will go to the nearest gym on the corner. But it's packed in January, but everybody, and it's a cliche, but it's true. And then everybody drops off. By the end of January, most of those people aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
And so at the end of it, they haven't got any results from this burst of activity.
Yeah.
So it's,
and then they kind of beat themselves up for not doing it.
And so say, what's the point? And then it all goes away till next January. But consistency is the key. If you're there in February, if you're there in March, and the key is, if you look at a lot of metrics from gyms, if you can get over that first 3 months. So if you can get 3 months of exercise in, what you've done is you've set a pattern and a habit.
Yeah.
Now your drop off. So your drop off is your percentages of dropping off. Drop off a cliff. If after that if you do 3 months of it.
Yeah. It just reminds me. It's just thinking of a guy who does. He's a member of the gym now. Who was coming along to the Cornermen, and he had that kind of bright start. Signed that he found out. People often find what the gym gives them, and they just sign up. So can do. And then when it comes to that, and there's a kind of real test. There's going to saying to him, there's going to be a testing period when you're not going to want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's when you'll know whether you've won the kind of mental fight, if you like. If you can go, actually, I don't want to go today, but I'm going to go.
Yes. That's the vital time.
And that's because, many people can talk a great game, but it's like you say, turning up.
Yeah.
I'm going to go do this, I'm going to do that. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Do it when you don't want to.
And it's having that consistency. Consistency is such a key. And also, I think, one thing that is useful with the consistency is having a goal.
Yeah.
So, we get a lot of guys that sign up for various charity fight nights.
Yeah.
And they all say if they train like they never have before, we do one here where they do a couple of times a year where they get 8 weeks of training and they go and box at a show in Oxford. And a lot of the lads, I know from the Cornermen go and do that and then box to raise money for the Cornermen. And they have an amazing night and an amazing experience. But for that 8 weeks, they're so on it. That whole group is on it. And a lot of people do drop off that because it's quite intense and it's quite, but those that make it through, what they've done is 8 weeks of week in, week out, consistent training, rapid improvement.
And you can see what it means to them.
Yeah. Because it's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
And it's also, so it's a physical discipline. Like I say, the most important is the mental discipline. because after 2 or 3 weeks, you think I'll have a week off. You can't have a week off.
Yeah.
Because you've got this coming up.
And I think, you can start quite small, which, we're talking about people who've come, when we have to be clear when we talk about the corner, these guys who are come through, they've started doing, they've built up, and that's where the consistency helps. You don't suddenly become great at something, or it's just going to be easy, or you're going to, it's about, the first step for these guys was, I'm sure they'd agree, I made a phone call to the Cornermen.
Yeah.
I never envisaged that I would be walking out in front of hundreds of people, and doing a boxing match. And that's not what lots of people do, lots of other different things, and there's real small victories. It's just, when things start to, I think when you make small things that work, it's about having the boring, I need to keep doing this. That doesn't mean life has to be boring. I like to have my life pretty much a week, know what's going. I'm going to be training there. I'm going to be going to do this. But you can do, once you've got your baseline. You can go and do other stuff. And
I think there's also an element of control in there, which can be mentally healthy to think I've got control of this. I'm going to go on these days, and I'm going to do my training then, and I'm going to make myself do it. And like you say, shut that voice off that says, "Well, you're driving to the gym, but if you just turn left instead of right, you go to the pub." And then just come back to the gym tomorrow. But if you keep that, you keep that consistency up, you've got a level of control in your life where other areas of your life you may not have control, and other areas of life can spin out of control.
And sometimes you're not in control of what happens externally.
No.
You are only in control of your own actions, how you think, what you do.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So it's getting control of something that you can get control of.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that kind of really, and it doesn't. I think there's maybe a danger that people think, we talk about this, that's what happens straight away.
Yeah.
You've got to work at it, because people say, no, I can't do that. I've tried that, it doesn't work. Yeah, well, keep trying. Keep trying. It's not something that comes automatically easy. Like you were saying, you'd been doing it since you were young. Yeah. I hadn't. I've always been quite rigid in what I do, but in terms of exercising, I hadn't. Yeah. And I didn't want it, to be fair, because I didn't really. I thought people who said, exercise is good for you, it's like, piss off, you smug kids. But they're right. And that's where, I've had to really work at it and make sure I come. Yeah. Keep coming to the gym and keep doing. I'm lucky now because I work here. Yeah. It just makes it easier. But even then, I'm still in the office thinking, no. Yeah. So I think if you even, it doesn't have to be that you suddenly you do these great things. If there's one thing, if that works, that makes you feel, that works in to help you feel mentally better, or give up one thing, or change something. And if it's working, keep doing it. I think this is very much what we're saying. We're saying that consistency underlying an exercise regime will make the exercise regime so much better for you and everything else. But that the consistency is the key. Yeah. In so many other things. Yeah. And as you said, it doesn't have to be exercise. It has to be something that that you do, that you allow yourself, and that you have the discipline to keep. Yes. And I think that comes across in all aspects of life. Yeah. And it's anything you try and master. I mean, it's like me and the guitar. See, I brought it back to the band. Yeah, well. But it's like, what do you got? You have to play every day. I remember a mate of mine saying ages ago, and he's a very good guitarist and works as a guitar tech. But I was as a gig. He was the guitar tech out, and Jack was talking. My son was talking about playing the guitar. And he was all right. He said, "Why don't you just say 20 minutes a day, Jack? Just say 20 minutes a day." And that's what I started off at when I started doing it. It's like, I'm going to do 20 minutes a day. And that's what I'm going to do. Even if I don't want to, even if I'm bored, I'm going to do 20 minutes a day. And if you just start with that, and sometimes you're watching the clock. If you keep that discipline, then all of a sudden, you start off trying to get to 20 minutes, like, I'll do that again, the same thing again. It's boring, and it's not quite right, and it doesn't sound good. But then pretty soon, it's like, oh my God, 20 minutes is gone and I want to do some more. Yeah. And and then you just get lost in it, and there's so many sort of twists and turns and averages in it, but without getting over that initial bit of consistency at 20 minutes a day, because you do that for a month, and at the end of the month, you want to give up because you think, I'm not really any better than the start. And it's just, and so, but you've just got to keep that consistency and keep going. And what is that thing? Is it 10,000 hours to master something? I don't know.
Is the theory. Yeah. But,
no, and so just like with the Cornermen, we're quite aggressive in how we interact with people. we're not kind of we don't wait always for someone to get in touch with us, because I'm not sure we sort of often send someone a text, how you doing, but we try and so we're often trying to prod people to say, come on, let's keep this routine.
Yeah.
And the amount of times you'll get, oh, I don't really feel like it today, but let's do it.
Yeah.
And so we try and keep the same day, or make sure it's, get a spread so that we're kind of keeping a routine, just to try and help someone. It kind of almost feels like you're trying to help someone crank up.
Yeah.
Let's do a week, and let's do 30 seconds on each bag.
Yeah.
Or do whatever you can on the bag.
Yeah.
And then we'll do one more bit next week. And well, fair play. Because everyone will always beat themselves up and I'm knackered. Yeah, but you did one more bit than you did last week. That's a win. People want I should be coming in here and but no, we got to build up to it.
There's a great quote I remember. I mean, full of quotes today.
Yeah, what if you swallowed a thesaurus or something?
Dictionary of quotes.
Yeah.
But I just remember him saying he used to do these amazing treks across the Arctic mainly. So he walked across the South Pole, walked across the North Pole.
Walked.
Not
a lot to see.
Walked. I mean, no dogs, no sleds, no nothing. Just walked. And and often people say to me, how do you walk across the South Pole? How do you walk across the North Pole? And he said, well, if you break it down, all you have to do is put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
That's the core of it. You might talk about support teams, you might talk about prep, you might talk about, but mentally, he said, that's it. Put one foot in front of the other. That's all you do.
Yeah. And that seems just like, people, I want the magic, I want this magic scheme, I want this magic way.
Yeah.
You just got to put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, the real quote was eat 147 Snickers.
Yeah,
that's what he actually did. And it just worked.
Yeah,
it just worked,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but that was it. It's just that, and that's the ultimate, to me, that's the definition of consistency.
Yeah. I think that's probably a nice way of rounding up, to be honest, John, that of all the great things.
Yeah, just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, because, you can't affect what's gone on before.
Yeah.
You can't change it. And there's no point in worrying about what's going on in front, because you can't do anything about it. You don't know. There's no surety. So one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
You'll get where you're going.
Let's put that on a t-shirt.
Oh, yeah, okay. On some shoes.
Yeah.
Some slippers. Cornermen slippers. I'm spitting at you. Yeah.
Right. Great. All right, Steve. Well, let's call it there, and I'll let you get back to your Snickers.
Yeah.
And and we'll be back for episode 6. That'll be episode 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's almost a season. Is that what they call it?
Is that a season? Yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah. 6 episodes. Cool. Yeah, right. Season 1. The end of season, final episode of season 1. Yeah. So we'll have to do something like amazing, or some sort of revelation that's come at the end of a season.
Oh, that's too much pressure, John.
Don't worry, I'll think of it.
Yeah. I'll have an eye on you for that.
All right.
Right, cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate.